Hello and welcome into the Locked On Wolves postcast. We are live following the Timberwolves win over the Utah Jazz. Marney Gellner of Bally Sports North joins the show to break down the game. The Locked On Wolves postcast starts right now.
You are Locked On Wolves postcast, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Marney Gellner of Bally Sports North is with us to talk through the Timberwolves win over the Jazz on Friday night. And Marney, this was another fun one. Actually kind of similar to Wednesday's win over the Pacers. The Wolves were up double digits at halftime. The Jazz come back to tie it, but the Wolves keep pushing back. Fun close to the game, fun fourth quarter, a big D'Lo game late. Where do you want to start with this one?
I think DAngelo Russell, man,
Yeah.
Going in, we talked a lot of, on our pregame show anyway, talked a lot about Rudy Gobert. There was such a big storyline and some emotion to it, heading back home to Salt Lake City, or his home for 9 years anyway. But we got to that fourth quarter. D'Lo went 6 for 6 from 3 in the fourth. He had 20 points. The Wolves as a team had 36, and D'Lo had 20 of those in the fourth quarter. And it's the second game in a row where he just turned it up a notch or 10 in the fourth quarter, and the confidence I just feel like is totally different right now than it was at the start of the season. He talked about after the game that early in the season he was trying to be a point guard. Like, that was his mindset, and he was trying to manage everyone and manage the game, and he was trying to be, in his words, be a point guard. And just recently he totally shifted his focus to, now I'm just going to play basketball, because that's what he's always done. And he said it's made a big difference for him. So the adjustment from thinking and being like a point guard to versus being just a basketball player has somehow unlocked DAngelo Russell.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. He scored 20 in the fourth quarter. He shot a perfect 7 of 7 from the field in the fourth. He hit 5 threes. And he was pretty good over the first 3 quarters of the game. I thought he was playing well on both ends of the floor. He's competed a lot more defensively lately as well. I don't know if that came up at all post game, and the focus, obviously, rightfully so, was on his crazy offensive fourth quarter. But he's also just competed on defense more lately, and I think that's been a little bit of a tone setter too for the Wolves, because the ball pressure or point of attack defense, really perimeter defense, hasn't been great for much of the season. But then the Jazz played a lot of zone in this game, mixed it in quite a bit, heavy zone early in the fourth quarter. And DAngelo Russell was kind of the ultimate zone buster, where he just would kind of pass and relocate, and his teammates would find him and he'd be open, and he knocked down the three more often than not. Actually, every time he shot a 3 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
It was really kind of a perfect all around close to the game for DAngelo Russell.
He was in the sweet spot every time when the Wolves needed him to be. And he talked about the zone, and that was really the key to him getting those shots in the first place. But he would, as you said, Ben, he would relocate and find the soft spot, the sweet spot, whatever it is, where Utah was kind of sagging off a little bit. And I mean, you could tell a 6th grade basketball team how to beat the zone, and it's hit outside shots. They're there for you. And that goes all the way up to the NBA level. That's still true. So yes, 7 of 7 from the floor, 6 of 6 from 3. He did not, I think it was 0 for 3 going into the fourth quarter, D'Lo was, and then went 6 of 6 from 3 in the fourth. It was really incredible. He was absolutely locked in and locked on, if you will.
Nice. I like it. We've talked about this before, actually, on the postcast, Marty, that teams playing zone against the Wolves, taking it just a little bit bigger picture, teams have done that to great success against the Wolves this season. Most teams kind of mix it in. There's some teams that, of course, play it more than others. And the Wolves struggled a lot with, teams that are really good at it, like a Miami, that do it a lot. But even still, the Wolves never really seem to figure out, as we've talked about, it's a relatively elementary concept, just make the easy pass and hit the open shot. But I think part of the reason it's so effective at the NBA level against some teams is that hardly any team is playing zone most of the time, right? They're mixing it in. It's not like a college or high school team that plays it 100% of the time. It's not like you're playing Syracuse every night. So you don't get used to it on every possession. It's more of a wrench to throw in the middle of the game. And in this game, it almost felt like Utah overplayed the zone, so much so that the Wolves just got comfortable, like basically just kind of picking it apart in a sense. And obviously you still have to make the open shots, but we've seen the Wolves throw the ball into the stands, and there were still some sloppy moments in this game, but we've seen them have really bad turnovers against the zone in the past. And it almost felt like they got comfortable. And I don't know if this is like a breakthrough moment for them, against the zone, who knows? But I mean, that would be a really, like, that's been one of the major storylines, I think, of the first quarter of the season, has been the Wolves' inability to knock down shots and beat zone defense.
It has been an issue. And I would guess somewhere in between the two is the real Wolves team, because the inability to hit shots, and in particular hit 3-point shots up until the last couple of games, is not, I don't think, where this Wolves team is. But also having DAngelo Russell go 6 for 6 from 3 is not where this team is either. You can't expect that anywhere near that's going to happen on a regular basis. So once all the dust settles and we find out really maybe this team is like a 7-8% 3-point shooting team, then if you hit them at the right time, you can really knock a team out of the zone quickly. But just hitting shots and hitting 3-point shots has been an issue for Minnesota against man, against zone. It doesn't really matter. And Karl Anthony Towns is the team's best 3-point shooter. Taurean Prince is the team's second best 3-point shooter. And both of those guys are out and missing significant time at this point. Chris Finch gave an update on Taurean and said he's going to be another week to maybe 2. And he was hurt that week of Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. So now the Wolves are trying to figure this out without their 2 best percentage-wise 3-point shooters. So, I mean, that, I guess the number is still in flux, or the real Timberwolves team is still to unveil itself, and it's somewhere in between what's happened to start the season and what's happened in the last couple of games.
Yeah, it's been one of the things I've talked a lot about on the show is the Timberwolves. Eventually there's going to be some progression to the mean for a lot of these guys that are shooting well below their career averages. And I made note during the game, this potentially is DAngelo Russell's progression to the mean, because he's well below his career average coming into the game. He finished, like you said, 6 of 6 in the fourth quarter, finished 6 of 9 from 3. And the Wolves shot 40% as a team at halftime. One of the stories of the game was that the Jazz were predictably making threes, like everybody expected them to do coming in. The Wolves were dominating in the paint, like we expected them to coming into the game, and they were up 16 at halftime. And then in the second half, the Wolves all of a sudden caught up to the Jazz and surpassed them. They actually ended up making more threes in this game than Utah, which is not what we expected.
No.
Another, I guess, related to the zone, but taking the conversation in a different direction, Kyle Anderson tonight finished with 12 assists. He finished with 15 and 12. Of course, Jordan McLaughlin ended up only playing 4 minutes, leaving with calf tightness. I want to talk a little more about that later, because the Wolves play again on Saturday, and who knows what the bench situation looks like for Chris Finch. But in this game, it ended up being a lot of Kyle Anderson and a little bit of Jalen Noel running the second unit effectively. Kyle Anderson played 35 minutes in this game and was really, really good. Part of it was running the second unit, and then the other part of it was he kind of sat down in the middle of the zone, almost like you'd see a receiver do in football, where like, I'm just going to pick a spot and stand here. They're going to throw me the ball, near the elbow or whatever. And then I'm going to kind of pick apart the defense, find guys that are open. But Kyle Anderson was like that perfect, we talk about him being that veteran with a calm demeanor, somebody who obviously is nicknamed slow-mo, things slow down. He plays the game at his own pace.
Yeah.
And this was, I think, he was one of the keys to the Wolves, not having a true point guard to run the second unit at all, and then also playing a team that plays his zone so much. Kyle Anderson was really good. One of his best games, certainly, in a Wolves uniform.
Yeah, he was 3 rebounds shy of a triple-double. Mm-hmm. Kyle Anderson needed 3 more rebounds to get a triple-double. He's really a unique player, because you really can play him 1 through 5. He'd be small if he's going to be your 5, but I mean, in a pinch, a guy that is that versatile is really something special in the NBA. And he grew up playing AAU basketball with the older kids, specifically because he was always tall and his dad never wanted him to be pigeonholed as a big, as a post player. And so when he played up, obviously he's very skilled too, so it was probably the right skill level, but his dad did it intentionally so he could play with taller kids so he could still handle the ball. And even in college, he played his first year as a power forward or forward position, his second year point guard at UCLA. And so even entering the NBA, he was coming off a season where he was his college team's point guard at his height at 6'9". So that, I mean, to have that skill, to have developed it, to keep it, to be able to use it at a high level for someone of his size, I just feel like that is super impressive. And then you see where it comes to play in a practical situation. That would be tonight when Jordan McLaughlin has to leave the game with a calf injury, and now you're like, well, who's gonna play points in our second unit? Well, good thing we have Kyle Anderson here. Apparently he can. Yeah, well, that was actually, I thought that was really fun to watch him sort of just handle himself in that situation.
Let's talk about our presenting sponsors of the Postcast tonight. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. We've got it all at BetOnline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can also find those at BetOnline. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Marty, let's talk a little bit about Anthony Edwards. He didn't shoot the ball well, obviously, in this game. He finished, 3 of 14 from the field, 2 of 6 from 3. But that was really the only thing he didn't do well. I thought early in the game he struggled some defensively. It kind of felt like it was going to be one of those Ant games. And then I don't know what happened, but it felt like he just kind of locked in towards the end of the first quarter, early second quarter. He was really good defensively for the most part in this game. He had 6 rebounds, 3 steals, only 1 turnover in this game. He got to the line 6 times. He had that really impressive bucket he made with under a minute to play, I think, where it looked like he was going to try and sling just a massive 2-handed dunk, and he was able to still have control of his body to make a really tough layup. It was an interesting Ant game, and I thought he really, grinded this one out, given how bad his jumper looked for much. It didn't look bad. He just missed a lot of jumpers. I just thought this was an impressive performance from that standpoint, that he still was able to play, I thought, pretty good complementary basketball in this game.
I would agree with that. I think he was 1 for 11 before he made a couple more shots. It was just a really, really rough shooting night for Ant. And so I think him being able to continue to contribute in the game was really a step forward for him, because sometimes his whole kind of demeanor or engagement or interest in the game is tied to his offensive performance, whether he's getting the shots, making the shots, involved in the offense, that kind of stuff. Well, he was getting a decent amount of shots, but he kept driving to the rim. He missed several at the rim. They were contested, but though I feel like that could be the type of game where Ant just either checks out mentally or just doesn't have the will to keep going at 100% and trying to make a play to help his team win the game. And this was a night where the offense was not there, the shot, at least shot-wise, at least the shot going through the net was not there, but he still was throughout. So that, to me, is progress and a real step forward for Anthony Edwards. Now we'll see what he does tomorrow night, because he is notoriously not very energetic in the second night of a back-to-back, and even he is the first person to admit that. So can he carry it over? Can he do it on back-to-back nights?
Yeah, and if he brings, the effort in all other areas, and I think overall on the glass he's been much better lately, which is something we've been, Chris Finch has talked about it. We've all, covering the team have talked about, like, hey, Ant and Jaden McDaniels both need to rebound better. That's going to go a long way towards solving the rebounding issues. And I think Ant's been a concerted effort. He had one offensive rebound that was just insane in this game, and then missed the putback, actually, to your point. But like the athleticism and the size, he's just got to rebound better. And I think we're seeing that a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the bench. No Jordan McLaughlin after he played 4 minutes in the first half, and ended up with, as we talked about, Noel and Anderson running point. We saw a little bit of Wendell Moore Jr., his second straight game where he played just 4 minutes after starting the previous 2 games. He ran some points at the end of the third quarter. We talked about back-to-back on Saturday night. What do the Wolves do with the backup point guard spot? I mean, they just recently waived AJ Lawson, who can run some offense, and he's no longer with the team. They, of course, because of Cat's injury and Taurean Prince's injury, they added some more size to the roster. They just added Matt Ryan, who's very much, a bigger forward, a wing. Do they just kind of have Jalen Noel or Wendell Moore run the second unit, or is it Kyle Anderson staggering minutes and running a lot of point like they did in the second half of this game? Is that sustainable? What do you think they do on Saturday to run that second unit? And I guess beyond that, moving forward, if McLaughlin ends up missing a few games with the calf again?
Yeah, I'm hoping it was precautionary and that Jordan maybe felt it just tighten up, because that was the official word. It was calf tightness. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like re-injury or pull or strain or whatever, but I would be surprised if he plays tomorrow. So right. I'll go with the assumption that Jordan McLaughlin will be out, but hopefully that's the only game he'll miss. Mm-hmm. Boy, I really don't know. Is it kind of point guard by committee? And how many minutes is DAngelo Russell going to be able to play on the second night of a back-to-back, knowing this is also the start of a 5-game road trip where they're playing 5 games in 8 days? Like, this is just not an easy stretch. At least they don't have to travel between games here. It's Portland on Saturday, Portland on Monday. So you kind of get probably a little more rest, stay in one place. But we saw the point guard by committee with Jalen Noel, Kyle Anderson, and Wendell Moore Jr. tonight. And Wendell got 4 minutes, so sometimes maybe that's all you need is just give us 4 solid minutes. Let's patch it together. We'll put timeouts on either side. It'll give D'Lo an extra few minutes to rest and catch his breath. This is where the creativity and outside the box kind of thinking from Chris Finch, I think, can help. I do not have an answer, and it's something I'll be watching. And then, of course, you got to think defensively too, because you got Damian Lillard and Anthony Simons, a really good backcourt in Portland, where you need your point guard and probably your 2 guard as well to not just play on the offensive end, but to give you some really solid defensive minutes as well.
Yeah. Okay. So Portland Saturday night, and then Portland again, weirdly in Portland on Monday. I guess let's close with this. Any thoughts at all on the end of the game on the Rudy Gobert shot at the buzzer right before the buzzer, the Malik Beasley, exchanging words with him at center court? I feel like it's pretty much a non-conversation, but social media is having the conversation. So, I mean, do you have any thoughts on it at all?
Yeah. I was like, calm down, everybody. Yeah. Chris, I'll tell you what Finch said. He said, if you don't want Rudy to shoot that shot, then don't press us.
Yep, exactly.
So if Utah's going to go into a full court press,
right. Like
if you're going to play hard, why can't we play hard?
Right. Exactly. It's not like he took a wide open 3 with them not contesting or not, because you're right. They were completely pressing. And it also, there's also the end of the Jazz game in Minnesota at the beginning of the year in game 2, when Vanderbilt had the dunk with something extra at the end. Now that was a 4-point game, but the Wolves were also pressing. Like, it's kind of same. And I think Rudy probably just did it because, hey, I'm right in front of the basket and I'm a pro basketball player. Why wouldn't I just lay it in? I don't think he was thinking about the Vanderbilt dunk in Minnesota, but
no. And I thought it's not like Rudy dunked it and then pointed at the crowd or did anything. I mean, Malik Beasley, after he hit that 3 in the second half right in front of the Wolves bench, stood there for another 10 seconds and did some sort of weird hip dance move, and that didn't get teed up. So I just think tempers were probably hot, and I think Malik Beasley maybe really wanted to win this game, and he was the guy that took exception to it. Involved in this were the 2 that were traded for each other, so maybe it was more Malik taking it personally than the Utah team, but I thought Rudy handled it just fine. He got the pass. He was basically taking a shower underneath the net. Like, that's how far under the basket he was. All he had to do was jump up and put it in. I was fine with it.
Yeah, I agree. And it does feel like it's really more about the former Wolves than it is about like a Wolves Jazz rivalry. I mean, who knows? If the Jazz continue to play well, then obviously same division, currently similar records. Like, we'll see when it's all said and done, but these teams still play a couple more times this year. As we mentioned, the Wolves go to Portland to play on Saturday night and then stay in Portland to play again on Monday. We'll be live again following those games for the live postcast about 45 minutes after the final horn here at the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. And also after the fact, the audio on the Locked On Wolves audio channels. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find that. Be sure to subscribe to both Locked On Sports Minnesota and Locked On Wolves. A big thank you for listening. A big thank you for watching, and we will catch you next time.